You introduce others. Hey, introduce yourself, introduce everyone.
Okay, so we get started here. So I'm Husnain. I'm one of the helpers for SIGPwny. Over here, co-presenting with me is Anakin, also one of the helpers. In the front row, we have Assam, Nebu, and Pranav is also not here. He's not here, but he helped with all 5 of us business lines. So yeah, here's the meeting flag. Submit those for some CTF points. 20x KCD, relevant x KCD for nearly every selection. I'm gonna hand it over for Thomas for some announcements.
That's good.
Next slide. Next slide.
Did everyone get the meeting flag, and does everyone register with the internal CTFD?
Yeah, so real quick, if you don't know what this is, and if you don't know how to use this, go to ctf.sigpwny.com. And then from there, create an account and go to the meeting at the top. Is it at the top, by the way?
Yeah.
We'll make sure it's at the top. It's at the top, good. So go to the meeting at the top, and it'll be the crypto meeting for fall 2021. And then look for the meeting flag box. It's a challenge. Click on that and write that in. So that's what's going on there. That's our internal CTF. You can get points for coming to meetings and points for solving challenges. Next slide for announcements. All right, so 3 quick announcements. Announcement 1, the scoreboard was reset to the start of this semester. So the start of fall 2021, every challenge that's happened after that, we have a it now has points. Everything else has been vaulted. So what that means is it's still available for you to solve, but it's worth 0 points. So you can solve it. We still have like a description of how much it used to be worth, but for the purposes of the actual year-long competition, it's just for practice. What we will be doing throughout the semester is unvaulting previous challenges. So if you happen to already solve it, it will be worth points. But if you haven't solved it yet, it will now be worth points, so you can get points. The second thing, we are having a weekend LAN party today at this weekend from 12 to 6 p.m. in Siebel 1404. There will be food. We will be playing something like Minecraft or something. I'm not totally like the details of exactly what we're going to be doing are not locked down. Minecraft will be involved. Probably like Mario Kart or Smash Bros. Up on the big projector will be involved. So that's something to do this weekend. If you're available, please do it. Please show up. There will be food. Lastly, most importantly, the feedback form. This is the QR code to the feedback form. If you can take a picture of that and fill that out, if someone can also copy paste that link into the chat, that would be really appreciated. If like someone who knows how to do it, copy paste it into Club General. Please fill out the feedback form. We've kind of been pushing really hard to do some new stuff this semester, like with seminar and with the more social events, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can give us feedback, good or bad, it's anonymous. You can put your name, you don't have to. So there's a flag too. If you want to do that, it's worth like I think 50 points. So yeah, that is those are announcements. Now let me hand it back to you.
Cool. Thanks. So, what is crypto anyway? That's a good question to start off with. So basically, in essence, cryptography is the study of sending encrypted messages or secure messages securely from one party to another. So let's say I'm Alice and I want to send messages to Bob, but there is a third party, Eve, who's a nosy person. I don't like Eve. They're trying to intercept this message. So I want to send a message to Bob without Eve finding out. So cryptography allows us to send a message to Bob without Eve finding out. Next one. Obviously, this kind of sending messages securely has a lot of applications. So on this slide, we have 4 examples. So the HTTPS, for instance, the S indicates that the data on a web page is encrypted, usually with OpenSSL. Cryptocurrency, you might have heard, very popular recently. Cryptocurrency usually uses cryptographic algorithms to process transactions on the blockchain. SSH, if any of you have used that, you might have a private key that you use to access a machine. So if you have a private key, only you can access a machine versus anyone else will not be able to access that machine. Finally, we have the Enigma machine. In World War II, Nazi Germany used the Enigma machine to send secret messages, and Alan Turing of much fame cracked the the Enigma machine in the 1940s. Next slide. So before we actually get into talking about how to encrypt messages, we want to talk a little bit about how we actually encode messages. So a bit of a TLDR here. We might discuss this a bit later in the forensics meeting. But basically, computers store messages or basically anything as zeros and ones. And we have different ways of representing these zeros and ones. We have this chart here that you can refer back to when you're solving these challenges. 3 different formats, right? So we have base 64, hex, and just a normal integer. And we have the various Python functions that you can call to convert them back and forth for strings. For these challenges, we're going to assume Python usage, just because there's a lot of nice libraries in Python that deal with cryptographic usage, or like that implement a lot of cryptographic schemes. So just normal tip on the slide here, always work with Python bytestrings, and modern Python is always nice. Are there any questions so far from the Zoomers or the Roomers? Good so far? Slide. So cryptography is a very old subject. In ancient times, we didn't have computers, obviously. So to encrypt a message, it often worked on the letter level. So we kind of worked on a message letter by letter to kind of obfuscate the message. So one of the most old and classical ciphers is called the Caesar cipher. So basically, what this entails is taking each letter of your message and kind of shifting it over by some number. So for example, we have here, if you have like an A, you shift it over to, and it turns into a C, a B turns into a D, and so on. This is a specific case of what's known as the substitution cipher, where basically you substitute each letter in your original message with another letter. So generally, this kind of cipher is not used modernly because they're pretty easy to crack with something called frequency analysis. Those are words that are put together, but essentially, what that means is you can use patterns in English. Like for example, if you have English text, right, you can assume that a letter like E will occur more often than the letter X. So you can use assumptions like that to crack your cipher text. And then we have the Vigenère cipher, which is like the Caesar cipher, but instead you have each character shifted by a key phrase. So it's like multiple Caesar ciphers that occur with each character. Note that these are not secure. These are not used modernly because they're easily used. Next slide. So when we talk about cryptographic schemes, there are 2 types. The first type is symmetric encryption that we have on the slide here, where basically you have a plain text and you use a key to encrypt it into a ciphertext or a cipher message. So here we have, you can see the key on both sides here. And what's important here is the key is the same. So you can see here, the plain text, we take a key, we put it into some kind of algorithm that produces a ciphertext. Then we take the same key and it pops out the same plain text. Next slide. Or we should kind of stop here. Do we have any questions? Good. Next slide. Okay, so the kind of prototypical example of what a symmetric encryption scheme is XOR. So here you can kind of see a chart of what XOR looks like. Basically, if you have A and B are the same, your output is 0. Otherwise, if your two inputs are different, sorry, your output is a 1. So you might have seen this in like your CS class or a discrete math class or something like that. The important property of XOR is that it's its own inverse. It basically undoes itself. So if you have something like A XOR B, and you XOR that with B, you get A. That's a lot of words, but this important idea of being its own inverse is what makes it able to be used for symmetric encryption. Because if you have the same key, you can undo, it allows itself to be undone. Questions on that?
Great intuition for XOR is the light switch by like a staircase. So there's one at the top and one at the bottom. Every single time, if you flip the light switch, no matter what, it's going to turn on. Right? So I turn the light switch upstairs, off, and I go downstairs and it'll turn it back off. So the reason XOR is its own inverse, you flip the light switch one time, and then you flip the light switch again, it'll go back to where it was before. So that's kind of the physical intuition for why XOR works.
Thanks, Thomas. Yeah, so this idea of being its own inverse is basically what makes it good for symmetric encryption. Are there any questions? Oh. So modern cryptography does not use XOR typically. XOR by itself. It usually uses XOR with some other stuff. For example, AES, which basically you can, for right now, think of a magical black box that uses XOR internally to kind of, you can kind of think of it as like a blender that kind of takes in your message, kind of shuffles it around a bit and puts something out. But what's important about this kind of magical black box is that it's its own inverse. So we can kind of use the same idea to make a symmetric encryption scheme. Yeah, so I'm gonna hand this over. Yes, question.
What does AES stand for?
Advanced encryption scheme. I'm gonna hand it over to Anakin. He's gonna talk about key exchange and asymmetric encryption schemes.
All right, cool. So I'm going to start off by explaining Diffie-Hellman Key Exchange. And this solves the problem of, if you think on all the previous examples, we presume that our sender and receiver had the same key. However, at some point, to start encrypting the message, one person is going to have to send the key to the other, and we can't presume that this can be done secretly in normal cases. However, through a protocol called Diffie-Hellman Key Exchange, we can have it so that our sender and receiver can send each other the secret key, and all the information is plainly public, but no one knows the secret key except for the sender and receiver. And the best way to explain it is kind of like mixing paint, okay? So Alice and Bob here have a common paint, yellow, and this is public knowledge. Everyone in the world knows that they have yellow. However, only Alice knows that she has red, and only Bob knows that he has blue. Or I guess that's steel. Anyways, so the point is they can combine these and they get these mixed colors. Now they can publicly send each other their mixed colors. Okay, we assume that Eve, our eavesdropper, can see the paints being sent to each other, but it's hard to unmix paint. I don't know if you've tried it, it doesn't work. So then now Bob has Alice's mixture and Alice has Bob's mixture. And now they mix it again with their secret colors. And if you notice, Alice has combined the same colors as Bob, but since they have their secret colors, they share a common secret that only they know. And this is the fundamental basis behind Diffie-Hellman Key Exchange. Arrow. There you go. Alright, so, like Husnain mentioned, the second most common type of encryption is asymmetric encryption, where we don't necessarily have that, our sender and our receiver have, they don't necessarily have the same keys. And, where's the padlock slide?
Next slide.
That one, yeah, hold on. There we go. All right. So the most intuitive way to think about asymmetric encryption is like a padlock, okay? Let's say Nebu up here has a padlock, okay? Anyone, me, Husnain, Assam, anyone can come by and lock this padlock, okay? But only Nebu and whoever he decides to give the key to can unlock it. So locking it is easy, unlocking is extremely difficult. That's the fundamental basis behind asymmetric encryption. You want to forward too much? What? Oh, we're good here. All right. So what's an example of asymmetric encryption? The most commonly used today is something called RSA. Named after 3 people. I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember the names, but it's named after 3 people. The fundamental idea is that our padlock is multiplication. Multiplying 2 numbers computationally is extremely easy. No matter how large they are, multiplication is very fast. However, going backwards is extremely hard. Factoring numbers computationally is very difficult. So we achieve security through the fact that most people don't have access to extremely powerful computers. And even more so, some of the most powerful computers on Earth still have trouble factoring numbers. Okay? So the bigger the number that we're considering, the harder it is to factor and the more secure it is. However, there are cases where numbers of like less than or equal to 512 bits have been broken. One famous example is, I'm sure you all have heard of Texas Instruments, how to use their calculators. So there was a big controversy with their TI-83 plus calculators, okay? A lot of people wanted to put their own software on their calculators. Texas Instruments did not like this. So what they did was they made it so that to modify any of the software on your calculator, you needed a secret RSA key. This RSA, so our number here was 512 bits. Turns out that at this time, people were able to factor 512-bit numbers. The guy who did it, he had his computer running for 73 days doing this problem. So it wasn't easy, but it was possible. And the point is, he released the numbers, the factors. And this means that when he released numbers, anyone could break open their TI-83 and put their own software. Texas Instruments didn't like this very much. So they did what most big companies do when this happens. They send a bunch of DMCA notices to any website like Wikipedia and Reddit who put these numbers out in public. And what did they do? Everyone else put the numbers out in public. So we ended up with all these calculators, which now are running their own custom firmware, and there wasn't anything Texas Instruments could do about it. But this is an example of where RSA has been used in real life and has also been broken. Now, typical RSA schemes use much larger numbers. I believe there are even some schemes which use over 4,000 bit numbers, which is an insanely large number and basically is infeasible to crack for now. So the challenge, there's some easy RSA challenges up on the TTFD that use small numbers, but if you're curious about what to do with large numbers, come back on Sunday and we'll talk about that. All right, tools. So how do you do this? So these aren't necessary for today's challenges. You can do them all with pure Python or your favorite programming language, but some tools that we like to use, SageMath is a very powerful math library based in Python, and it can do so many things, and cryptography is based in mathematics. It's a very powerful tool. Phone tools is a great set of Python scripts for automating all of this, especially if you have to do it a lot. We'll probably run a phone tool meeting at some point and other such tools. Cryptodome is a very popular library which also has more cryptographical schemes. This is more cryptography focused. So we have stuff for RSA, AES, XOR, a couple other very common schemes. Last but not least, this is an invaluable tool for anyone. Google, the wonderful website that tells us all the answers. Googling how to crack these things, especially under certain conditions, can get you very far, and it's probably one of the best ways to learn about all the vast different attacks out there. Now, installing all of these is kind of annoying. You can use a service called Docker and a website called CryptoHack, which will set all of this up nicely for you in your browser. Very easy to set up. People can come around and can help you get that set up on your computer. However, it's not necessary for these challenges. You can do them all with the normal programming language.
We have a meeting on Docker recorded, I believe, from last semester. I'll link that in the chat if you want to set up Docker.
So in addition to all the challenges that we've made on our internal CTF, I can't recommend the site CryptoHack highly enough. It's a great community. They have challenges that take you up from the very beginning to some extremely advanced cryptographical techniques. And they have a really nice Discord, which has a bunch of community members who are well versed in the field. And it's a great way to learn and do even more practice with cryptography. All right. As far as announcements for next meetings, so this weekend, like again with our weekend seminar, we're going to continue the theme of continuing on from our Thursday meetings. We're going to do crypto 2. We're going to cover harder techniques such as how to do frequency analysis, do it yourself. We're going to cover block ciphers, which are the foundation of many advanced cryptographic schemes, including AES. We're going to cover elliptic curve cryptography, which is really cool. I talked a little bit about it last Sunday, but I'm going more in depth into it. And then
That's wrong. Next Thursday, we're doing random, not fun.
okay,
I can cover it. So next Thursday, sorry, that's wrong. Next Thursday, we're doing Rev, which is reverse engineering, which is a important but not essential precursor to Pwn. So Pwn is binary exploitation. That is taking actual programs and actual binaries and trying to exploit them. So that's the kind of common stuff you've heard of: Stack Overflow, rock chains, kind of those buzzwords within hacking that exist. That's me, don't worry about it. So what we're going to do instead is do Rev, which is reverse engineering, and that is how you can start to look at those binaries and how you can analyze things and how you can approach taking things apart, figuring out what things do, and then exploiting them. So that's what we're doing next. That's what we're doing next week. Pwn will be 2 Thursdays from now. So, yeah. All right. Those are the slides.
We actually have one more.
Oh, one more. Okay.
Um,
Oh, like a demo?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, in a few minutes. So that is the slides. We're gonna do a demo in a few minutes, but we got a bunch of challenges up. So now is your time to go. We've got a lot of people here to help you. Start working on the challenges. We're here to support.
If you're interested in the demo, and I was right there, you should do it. Whoever wants to come up. Feel free.
We'll do it in like 5 minutes. Oh, this demo. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm going to, hi Zoom. I am going to pause the share. Actually, I'm going to stop the share, and then I am going to, Husnain, it went off.